Everybody, Mike Beer here with Wednesday's DRF race of the day. We're going down to Gulfstream Park, race number 9. It's for older horses, an allowance optional claiming event. They're going to go 7.5 furlongs on the turf course down at Gulfstream Park. Let's take a look at the field. 11 entered, and the headliner is number 4, the 2-to-1 morning line favorite, Social Paranoia. I suspect you'll get a much shorter price than that come post time. Social Paranoia, a horse who is already a multiple graded stakes winner on the turf. He's grade 1 placed. He's just starting back here off of a little bit of a layoff, taking on allowance horses for Todd Pletcher. He's going to be a very short price in this race. He's also supposed to be really, really hard to beat in here based on his overall turf form. Second choice on the morning line is number 1, Olympic Runner, down from Canada for trainer Mark Cassidy. That horse, just to give you an idea of the discrepancy between Social Paranoia and some of the rest in here, he's the second choice on the morning line. Olympic Runner, he's a maiden on the grass. He's never won a race on the turf. He's a pretty good horse, though. He's kept some pretty good company. Distance is a little bit of a question for him. I think it's still kind of unclear how far he may or may not want to go, but he's an okay horse. He's going to need a little pace to close into here. 4-to-1 seems like a pretty short price for a horse like him. Because you have some other horses with some actual solid turf form in the field. Those among those horses, the number 5, Hey Dakota, and the number 6, Renaissance Frolic, they are the third and fourth choices on the morning line as things stand right now. And they're both multiple winners on the grass. They're both really, really good horses, real solid, perhaps a cut below, true stakes horses, certainly graded stakes horses, but they're both okay, multiple winners on the grass. Horses who definitely can make some noise in a race like this, especially if Social Paranoia comes back off the layoff in need of a race. Let's start out by looking at the time form US pace projector. You can see that they have the 7 Epic Dreamer right up there on the pace, along with number 9 Fig Jelly. These are two horses who I think you have to be, a little bit suspect about in a race like this one. Certainly Epic Dreamer, first time turf in here, first time for Mark Cassidy in here. He's actually a pretty good horse. I'm a fan of Epic Dreamers. We'll see how he handles the switch to turf, because based on his pedigree, there's a chance he could handle it. He's an orb. His dam did run on turf once in her career. She did not run well, but she has dropped a couple of turf winners. So there's a little bit of pedigree here for Epic Dreamer. He does have speed. I don't think the distance is any problem for him. Whether he handles turf or not is another question, but he's a big price on the morning line. Again, I'm a fan of his. I think he has some talent. I won't be surprised if he runs okay in this race. Maybe if he does indeed go off at a big price, you try to get him in there underneath. Fig Jelly, they also have up close, mostly, I suppose, because he's stretching out in distance for here. He's mostly been a turf sprinter throughout his career. You can go back in his PPs. Formulator allows you to pull the lifetime PPs of these horses. He did route on turf way back early in 2018 a couple of times at Keeneland. He has a couple of second place finishes going long, but he's mostly a sprinter. And, obviously, when you just look at his overall record, you sort of realize there's a little bit of a flaw with Fig Jelly. He's got some talent. He's run some very solid Beyer speed figures, but he's also 2 for 28 lifetime with 13 runner-up performances, and that includes his most recent start at Belmont Park, where he once again settled for second in a race that got wired in front of him on a very soft pace for that distance of a race. Not my kind of horse. He could be up close to the pace in here. He very rarely seems to win. I didn't really want him. They have the 3 Perfect Spidey up there. That horse is pretty interesting. He's very lightly raced, coming off a big win up at Woodbine. They have him 20-to-1 on the line. That's a very fair price on Perfect Spidey, because he's one of the few horses in here who's not really a made horse at this point. He could certainly take another step forward in here. He's got a huge pedigree for a very good trainer. And again, he comes off of a very nice race, winning at Woodbine last time. Before we get to him, I just want to touch on a couple of other contenders that we didn't get to in the open here. One of the horses who I do think has a chance in this race, and is one that maybe you want to take a look at if he turns out to be a good price in here, and he certainly could be, is the 10 Louder Than Bombs. He's another horse who doesn't win that often. He's only 3 for 20 in his career, 3 for 15 on the turf. But man, he's run some good races, and he's held his own with some better horses, with some stakes quality horses. Trips are very important to him. He's gotten some bad ones in his career, and that has a lot to do with his running style, because he doesn't have a lot of speed and he likes to linger sort of towards the back of the pack. But man, when he gets the right trip and a pace set up in front of him, this horse can run a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was around at the end of this race if things work out for him. He's going to need a little bit of pace. The last time he caught a pace down here at Gulfstream Park was earlier this year, back in February, in the Grade 3 Canadian turf. They went really fast in front of him that day. He sat way at the back of the pack, and he came with a run in there, missed it by less than a length and finishing third. I thought he ran well that day. His form since then has been spotty. There's been a layoff. He's coming here out of a race at Churchill. They got rained off the turf. I wouldn't be too hard on him for that race. His good race is going to give him a chance in here. Again, he's going to need a little pace in front of him, but maybe he gets it and comes and makes a run in here. I could see using him somewhere in this race. I didn't love the horses that we sort of touched on earlier, the third and fourth choices on the morning line, Hey Dakota and Renaissance Frolic. Renaissance Frolic does have speed. I suppose he could come out of there running, and the 5 horses drawn to his inside aren't necessarily burners, so maybe he can clear those horses and get to the early lead in this race. He's run a figure or two that would make him pretty tough in here, especially if he gets loose on the lead. If he manages that, I could see him hanging around for a very long time. Again, I didn't love him, but there are ways to look at him and think he's a player in here. Hey Dakota's another horse. He's got plenty of races that would give him a real chance, and he's more of a this kind of a horse, a high level allowance optional claiming type of horse, not really a stakes horse, but he did run in that Canadian turf that had that really fast pace that Louder Than Bombs was in, that we talked about, and he came running in there, actually dead heated with Louder Than Bombs in that race for third. He ran fine that day. He had really good form for Jason Service, and obviously everybody knows that story by now. When he came back out of the Service barn, he was claimed by Mike Maker, and Maker obviously does a good job. I feel like overall this horse has held his form for Maker. He's run some good races. He can contend in this race. Again, he's not a horse that I loved, especially if he's going to be, second or third choice in this race, but he could certainly win here. He does have some races I'm a little bit of a fan of. His Olympic Runner, the horse that's down on the rail, this is another horse that I like. I'm not sure. I think he's fine on turf. As I mentioned in the open, he's a maiden on turf. He's 0 for 7 on this surface. I think he's fine on this surface. They've actually run him in some pretty tough spots along the way. They tried him in the Woodbine Mile back in September. He came out of that and cut back to 6 furlongs in the Grade 2 in the Arctic. He ran okay in both of those races. He was never a real threat to win either one of them, but he ran fine, finished 4th both times, beaten less than 2 lengths. I think this horse is okay on turf. He's not a good gate horse, especially since he's come back this year as a 4-year-old. He tends to break slowly every week. That's a problem for him. It leaves him off the pace, and it leaves him generally with a lot to do in the stretch, and that's a real problem for him. I don't think he's great value at the morning line price. Maybe he drifts, and you want to give him another look. So let's start off with the horses that I'm going to wind up going 1-2 in this race. We'll start with the 3 Perfect Spidey, who we talked about a little bit in the open. He's a huge price on the line. We'll see where he goes off. I wanted to show the replay of his most recent race. This is at Woodbine. This is a horse who endured a very long layoff, and it felt like it took him a couple of starts to get back into form, but this is his most recent race. He spent a lot of time down on the rail, sort of buried behind horses all around the second turn. You can see him in the stretch there, forcing his way to the outside. He had a little trouble getting clear, but once he got clear, he came with a real good finish in this race. He ran the leaders right over in there. He was clear under the wire, a much the best performance. New Beyer top of 86, and he's only run 7 times. I mean, he's 3 for 7 lifetime. He won 2 of the first 3 starts of his career on the turf before he missed over a year of racing, and he's come back. And I think he really took a big step forward last time. I think this is an interesting horse in here. I don't know that you're going to get the 20-1 that the morning line has him, but he should be a fair price in this race. I think he's a player in here. I think this horse has a lot of upside with a big pedigree, and I think he could build off that win last time. Junior Alvarado will take over the mount for him. Social Paranoia, listen, he's just, ready the horse to beat, as we already laid out. He's Grade 1 placed as a 3-year-old. He had a little trouble winning the better 3-year-old turf races last year, but he ran well in many of those. Second by less than a length in the Belmont Derby, beaten less than a length in the American Turf on Derby Day last year. I mean, this horse ran some good races as a 3-year-old, and he's come back this year. Only 4 starts so far, but he's won 2 of them, 2 Grade 3s, triple-digit Beyers, and both of those races. I suppose the one way to look at him, when you just look at his 2 wins only in isolation so far this year, and you could say, you know what? He won the Appleton off the layoff where he had a good pace in front of him, and he came last to first, and then he won this race. Let's take a look at the poker. This is the last time we saw Social Paranoia. This is back on July 4th at Belmont Park, and he hasn't run since then. But this is another race where he just got the right trip. There were a lot of tough trips in this poker, a lot of horses who felt like they got pretty unlucky, and Social Paranoia wasn't one of those horses, just because he wound up at the back of the pack, and it turned out to be one of those races where the last run was the best run, and you see Social Paranoia making the last run to close that race. Now, he still ran well, but things did go in his way that day, and so maybe he took advantage a little bit. The problem with being too hard on him is, he has plenty of back races that are good. He's already a multiple graded stakes winner coming back in an allowance race. Even his Sunshine Forever down here back in May, where he was third to Holiday, he ran really well that day with Holiday wiring the field, and this horse being taken all the way back to last and then making a good run run through the stretch. I mean, to me, he's just a good horse. He's coming back in the right kind of spot. Pletcher is not a guy that you worry about layoffs with. He always has these horses ready to go. I just feel like this horse is probably going to be too good for this field as we put the picks up, and I'm going to put him on top over Perfect Spidey, who was the other horse for me. And we'll see what kind of price is. If he is some kind of big price, I can see maybe taking a shot with him on top in here. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, I'll put Social Paranoia on top. I went 4, 3, 1, and 10 in Wednesday's DRF race of the day. It's the 9th at Gulfstream Park. The approximate post time 4:39 Eastern time. Good luck.